I did work at a strip club to get ready for Hustlers.
You did?
I went
What did you have to
undercover.
do? Did you strip?
I gave lap dances to strangers.
Hello my friends and welcome back to Where Are They Now? In today's video, I'll be giving you the rundown on leading actress of Crazy Rich Asians, Constance Wu. Let's dive in. American film and TV actress Constance Wu's fame best comes from her time on ABC's Fresh Off the Boat as Jessica Huang, as well as her leading part in Warner Bros.' Crazy Rich Asians. But before we get into all that, let's rewind a bit. Constance was born Constance Tianming Wu in Richmond, Virginia on March 22, 1982. Her parents swapped out their former life in Taiwan for the States, and her dad worked as a biology professor at the Virginia Commonwealth University, while her mom built her career off being a computer programmer. Constance was the third girl of four brought up in her family and involved herself in local theater programs from a young age. She graduated in 2005 with her acting degree from the State University of New York at Purchas's Conservatory of Theater Arts. In line with this, the actress also briefly considered pursuing an additional degree, a graduate degree, at Columbia University for psycholinguistics. Constance's first garnering of attention came with the release of a dark comedy web series called Eastsiders prior to her breakout part in Fresh Off the Boat, which bases itself off of Eddie Huang's memoir of the same name, and follows a Taiwanese family adjusting to their new life in Orlando, Florida after moving from Washington, D.C. After this, Constance would move on to land the starring role in the comedic romance film Crazy Rich Asians, which was deemed as the first major Hollywood film within a 25-year time range to feature its centering around an all-Asian cast with a modern Asian American revolutionized story. Constance is also fairly known amongst this to be an outspoken advocate of Asian American representation in Hollywood. Constance's full career started off in New York. She would take on various supporting parts for both movies and television appearances. She was cast in indie films like The Architect and Stephanie Daly in 2006, and Law & Order SVU, Year of the Fish, and Covet Affairs in 2007. She also took on the role of ABC's One Life to Live character Laudine Lee in that same year. Once Constance transitioned to LA in 2010, she continued to bag more on-screen work, including a 2011 appearance in Sound of My Voice, a psychological thriller by Britt Marling. A mere 2 years later, Constance was able to put her acting chops to work through Eastsiders, which eventually became a critically acclaimed hit that went on to award her with heavy praise and nominations. Netflix eventually picked up the show, where she plays a devoted friend of the main character Cal, named Kathy, who has a naturally sharp tongue and complicated emotive ways to her. In a 2016 Vulture interview, Constance disclosed the show's initial head of direction when they were closing out their second season. She explained how their goal for the small screen work was to showcase their Chinese influence, but not to make it the only adaptation of the show. The idea in mind for this was to make the show more realistic, as Constance had mentioned how the issues of representation as an Asian American is big, no doubt, but that there are also other things in life that have equal importance, like filing taxes or making big decisions, things regular human beings experience on a day-to-day basis. Constance even further pushed the sentiment that her experiences have either been full Asian or full Caucasian experiences, and how there's been no real in-between exploration of breaking this barrier prior to their show. However, despite the series taking inspiration from the American Chef's memoir, Eddie Huang soon grew heavily critical of ABC's on-screen representation of his story. He made statements which claimed that the sitcom was interpreting Asian American lives in an artificial manner, adding that there was a whole thing of Jessica, Constance's character, being exoticized. Constance had responded to the criticism of glamorization by detailing that she was on both sides of the fence for this issue. Constance understood the need for Huang's public outlash just as much as she did with the network's decision in the direction of the show. She discussed with Vulture how, aside from the fact that Constance deals with her issues in private, versus the chef who takes 2 pages to deal with his problem, that they had nothing but love for him. She further noted that raising hell over something which brought about their love for Eddie in the first place would be a huge slap in the face. Constance felt like if they had to tone down their own voice of authenticity just to hang on to things that didn't have nearly as much value, then what was the point? She added to the statement by saying she enjoyed their show the way it was because at the end of the day, it was about exposure for little children and families in similar positions, and opening the mind and eyes of people who didn't quite understand their perspective of things. Despite this want though, Constance did slightly backtrack when she brought up the fact that Eddie's story was meant to be a true reflection of himself, but having young children be endured to the sites of domestic violence and hard substance usage is simply inappropriate at best. Now, remember when I mentioned her feature in Crazy Rich Asians Asians earlier, here's how it pertains to what we've learned so far. After the success of Fresh Off the Boat, Constance was in search of another project that would create social and cultural impacts around the world. She found exactly this through her Crazy Rich Asians role. The movie is an adaptation of author Kevin Kwan's novel of the same name. The director of the film, John M. Chu, raised interest of casting Constance for the leading part all along, but she had to reluctantly turn the project down at first because of scheduling conflicts. Nonetheless, about a month down the road, Constance had reached out to John through email to inform him that she was still passionate about the opportunity. When discussing this with the Hollywood Reporter, Constance wrote about the details of her email. In it, she talks about dates being unmovable and understanding this, but that she would dedicate all of herself to this part and how the impact of it would mean the world to her. She goes on to discuss her advocacy for younger Asian American girls who could gain something from not feeling small or commanded, to be grateful to sit at the same table as their non-Asian counterparts for her soon-to-be role. Nevertheless, John was so touched by Constance's email that he updated the arrangement of their filming schedule to accommodate her availability, which is pretty damn sweet if you ask me. Anyway, in the rom-com, Constance took a chance at playing a Chinese-American professor named Rachel Chu, and it paid off big time. The plot behind the genius film is about her humble on-screen boyfriend Nick sweeping her off on a flight to Singapore to celebrate the wedding of one of his friends, only for Rachel to eventually find out that Nick originates from a super wealthy family and is basically on every girl in Singapore's romantic hit list. She commented on her role to the Hollywood Reporter again, where she described conforming Rachel's character to identity. She continued by explaining that she wanted to differentiate the similarities and non-similarities of being full Asian versus being half Asian and half American, not knowing where to fit inside a predominantly lessened culture. Once again, let it be known that Crazy Rich Asians was given the title of first major studio project since the Joy Luck Club in 1993, involving an Asian American storyline with an all-Asian cast. It made headlines and became a steadily popular hit amongst audiences alike. It didn't matter where you were raised when it came time to watch this movie, because they did a solid job at making sure all viewers feel immersed and included in the on-screen journey. And in light of this, CRA cashed in $34 million at the box office in its first 5 days. So what happened for Constance following this, you may ask? Well, she moved on to voice animation for the 2018 film Next Gen, and then returned to the spotlight again through the 2019 movie Hustlers, which also featured other Hollywood actresses Jennifer Lopez, Keke Palmer, Julia Stiles, and Lily Reinhart. The film was centered around a stripping single mother based off a magazine article from 2015 about a bunch of exotic dancers who joined forces to drain the bank accounts of their wealthy Wall Street clientele. No matter how well known Constance is through her small and big screen jobs, she will also always be remembered as an outspoken advocate who gave Asian American artists a path to find diverse and meaningful work in the lively world of Hollywood. She consistently makes sure that her efforts in forging ample opportunity for Asian American artists in Hollywood do not go to waste, such as the time she spoke out against the 2017 Ghost in the Shell filmmakers' decision to cast MCU actress Scarlett Johansson as the heroine. Mind you, this story was originally supposed to center itself around a Japanese character in the film, so surely Constance's reaction is justified, right? Anyway, the Crazy Rich Asians actress also dished to Vulture once more about her experiences of speaking with higher-ups regarding the limited roles offered and available for Asian American actors. In regards to her conversations with the VIPs, she detailed how these office executives would often refer to her as wrong and dumb, and would white mansplain their reasons of why they thought this, along with her feelings of them painting themselves out to be good people. Constance even further mentions the things she had with the screenwriter and filmmaker Max Landis, who said the reason Asian Americans weren't being hired is because none of them were bankable movie stars at the time, and money is obviously highly valued in movie making. In Constance's eyes though, she somewhat emphasized with Max, even going so far as to say she understands his point of view, but that it doesn't change the fact of it being morally wrong and unjust. Constance calls for people to stop invalidating Asian Americans' experiences and care more to make their voices also matter, and their roles continue to be cast. As of today, quite literally as the story has dropped about an hour before I sat down to do this video, Constance has given us the inside information of what the backlash from her Fresh Off the Boat 2019 appearance did to her, and more specifically how it damaged her mental health. She describes harboring negative emotions at the time and admitted to attempting to take her own life over the recoil from her FOTB renewal reaction. She faced severe criticism because she was said to have been unhappy about the news, and later disclosed how she was temporarily upset because she had to choose between continuing with the series she starred in or giving her heart to the passion that burned inside her for Crazy Rich Asians. From this debacle, Constance fled from both her social media accounts and job opportunities over the past 3 years. On Twitter, she issued an image in a single tweet attempting to defend herself of her past actions. On this, she briefly wrote in summary, "Looking back, it's surreal that a few DMs convinced me to end my own life, but that's what happened. Luckily, a friend friend found me and rushed me to the ER. It was a scary moment that made me reassess a lot in my life. My tweets became a subject so touchy that most of my ASM colleagues decided that that was the time to avoid me or ice me out. It hurt a lot, but it also made me realize how important it is to reach out and care for people who are going through a hard time. That's why I wrote my book and why I'm here today. To reach out and help people talk about the uncomfortable stuff in order to understand it, reckon with it, and open pathways to healing. This tweet had finally revealed just how much work Constance was putting into her mental health to write her upcoming memoir, Making a Scene, which is set to be released in October of this year. Now, that is it for today's WATN. If there are any other Hollywood hotties you'd like to see in our next rundown, please feel free to drop them in the comments below, and don't forget to let us know what your thoughts are on today's Where Are They Now video. This was your host Michaela, who had the pleasure of delivering today's update on your favorite celebrities, and I'll see y'all in the next one.